Hey everybody, and welcome to a Moo episode of Indie Film Cafe's Criterion Watch. Sorry, we do so many shows. And in fact, today's the day where we're doing one of Moody's What the Fuck Friday movies. So today I thought I'd do the opposite of a What the Fuck Friday movie and do a very, very, very good movie by Akira Kurosawa from 1963 called High and Low, which is one of his sort of film and noirish kind of crime movies that he did sort of before the big
samurai
stuff that came around. So it's a really good movie, and so we'll be here to talk about it, and we'll
be right back.
Yep.
Bye.
See you on the flip side. Hey everybody, and we are back to talk about High and Low here on Criterion Watch.
Woo! High and Low!
So what did you think? This was the first time you saw this.
Yeah, this is my first time watch, and I actually really enjoyed it. It was very good.
Kind of a different movie. When most people... I mean, the only thing you've seen has really been his samurai films, right?
Right. Well, I think I might have mentioned this earlier, but I've only seen Seven Samurai all the way through. And some of Hidden Fortress, I don't even know if I got halfway through before I had to turn it off because I had a million things going on at the time. So,
yeah, so
I do.
This is more of a police procedural, a little bit of film noirish kind of a drama, kidnapping drama, but there's a lot that goes on.
Yeah, I didn't even know it was a kidnapping drama at all.
And it's a twist because it's not the guy's, the main character's kid who gets kidnapped. It's his chauffeur who gets kidnapped.
We're gonna spoil a lot of stuff, so just be ready for that because there's just no way to talk about this movie without all the spoilers that's gonna ensue.
It's funny because the movie starts off very similar to a way that, in my opinion, Kurosawa, a lot of his samurai movies start off. There's always, you've got these royalty, and they're all arguing about who should be leading, or who's going to be the next shogun, or something like that. That's pretty much what's going on here, except it's in more modern times. And
it's a shoe company.
Yeah, the National Shoe Company, which is kind of a joke. I mean, we kind of laugh about it now, but in Japan, post-war Japan, that's what they had. They had some national companies like that. So he's this shoe guy, and he's arguing with the other shoe executives because they want to do cheap shit like Americans do. Mm-hmm. And he would rather do the quality stuff that costs more, and there's a big problem because that's not what they want, and there's all this machinations going on.
The old man out who's on his side, I guess, or whatever. Or
he's on his own side, but they all want to it's kind of like they want to get rid of the current shogun and manipulate, somebody into being the next one that they can control, blah, 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 blah. It's just that it's set in modern times.
I did like that. I did like that line in the movie where the guy says, who's going to be the next one then, right? Because that's what Toshiro Mifune says. If you guys are trying to get a new guy, and I think they said we'll just find somebody we can control, and then we'll put us in a director, position or whatever. It's interesting.
Yeah. So it's the same kind of thing going on. It's just it's more modern, and it's a different setting. Although a lot of narrative stuff, the narrative mechanics are the same. So if you like all of those samurai movies, you're gonna like this too. It's just that nobody's running around with a samurai sword. They're carrying briefcases and have sunglasses.
No samurai swords in this one.
But there's a lot of interesting stuff. You're going to see some interesting scenes that, like you were saying, would not be out of place in an Ed Wood movie of the same period, early 60s, where you get kids in the clubs dancing to the swinging music and early rock and roll stuff. And there's this whole thing with heroin and buying drugs. So we were saying, there's a little bit of...
French connection.
Yeah, French connection going on there because they have to follow the guy who does the actual kidnapping, or he arranges the kidnapping.
And if you want to hear us talk about French Connection, you can check our Film Freaks episode.
Right. Because it's not a simple A to B to C here. It turns out the guy doesn't actually do the kidnapping, but he pays these other people to do it, and he has it all set up so that Gordo, who's the Toshiro Mifune's character, is the guy who's being manipulated and extorted. He has to follow these exact specific plans. He makes him get these 2 briefcases to put the money in, and they have to be exactly the same size, at this very specific size, and they don't really know why. And then they find out later it's because that's the exact size that the window to a train opens up, and he can shove them through the window as the train's moving, blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. But, the guy's very, very clever, but then the Japanese police take over, and they very exactingly investigate every single little tiny lead.
I liked how they did that. How they showed up. Like, they showed up at first. They were in a delivery truck, and they said, "Oh, the delivery truck is here, not the cops." And then they're in their uniforms or whatever as the delivery people. They come in and then they take off their delivery things and they're cops and whatever.
Because the lead detective was like, the guy could be watching us, and of course he was.
He was.
Yeah.
So he was very smart on that. I almost thought he was in on it. Like that. And this is a mystery. So a lot of times you're wondering who could be the and the was it 3 or 4 people that are chatting with him in the beginning of the movie. You think. I mean, at least I thought at first they could have something to do with it. That would be one way of going about it, is that they're the people paying the people off to do that.
In a way, it reminds me a little bit of Seven, in the way that you have this one guy who is, his mind is completely bent out of shape because of the world that he's living in, and he goes to these extreme measures in order to get what he thinks he wants. But, unlike in Seven, he more or less gets away with it, whereas in this case, he doesn't, and it takes an awful lot of investigation, an awful lot of stuff to go on. And, the first half of the movie, it's all about Gordo and his reaction to the whole thing. But then the second half, it's pretty much mostly the police chasing out every single lead, and that's when it goes from Toshiro Mifune over to Takashi Shimura, who's the other really big oak tree and that supports the Kurosawa movies. So I'd loved seeing that. And he was the guy who's mainly in charge. And, he's giving all of the teammates their own little section, their own little clue. Like, you got to take the trolley sound, and you've got to take the bills and the serial numbers, and you've got to take the tire marks. Motivations. You got to take the paint that we got from the scrape. And they all have to, run out everything, and it eventually, little piece by little piece, they start putting it together. But the really good thing is that it's the little kid who goes off with his father, because his father feels guilty about putting, this is the chauffeur.
We've got to mention, like, the chauffeur, well, you mentioned it earlier, but like the chauffeur's son is actually the one who's taken, not Toshiro Mifune's son. So at one point, even Toshiro Mifune's character is just like Grogu, I think is his name, or something. Gordo. Is like looking Grogu. That's the baby Yoda. No, Gordo is telling him, like, basically, I'm not paying this. They're gonna have to come after me. Blah blah blah.
Seems reasonable,
right? And then
kind of a dick move, but sure.
Especially when it's not your son. But
he knows it's going to lead to his complete failure, which is what happens.
Yeah. So they end up having to do that, and then when they're out actually doing the drop, they notice that it was like a man and a woman, that were there doing the drop or whatever, which doesn't necessarily mean they're the kidnappers, but they're the ones helping the kidnapper out, or whatever.
It turns out they were paid through drugs, and the kidnappers gets rid of them by giving them drugs that are way, way, way more pure than they actually ever had before, which he knew because he's an intern at a hospital, so he understands all that kind of thing. Only thing is he doesn't know that they died, because the cops say, okay, let's use that to our advantage, and they find something that they wrote to him, and then they forge it, and then they say, oh, give us more dope or we're going to spend all that money. And that's when the shit hits the fan, and he's got to go out and find more dope. So he's got to go through this whole rigmarole. And he goes into Dope Alley, which is like a nightmare. This nightmare alley of all these horrible, poor dope fiends. And in 1963 Japan, not the place or the scene or the people you would expect to see from that period or that time or from this director. But there it is. And that's why I meant it's got a very noir kind of feel to it, where it's got these sort of nightmarish images, and it's got some bad things that happen, and it's
not the cleanest, and it's not the like. It's definitely nothing like his samurai films,
right.
and stuff. So this is definitely a different take on it. Just like but yeah. So he goes in that thing, and and so in a way, like, this is terrible, but like the cops kind of helped murder somebody, like, not like because he did it, but like they allowed him sort of to,
so that they could give him a longer sentence.
I know, but isn't that really messed up?
Well, it is. On the other hand, I'm not sure he quite found out. I mean, he figured it out as it was happening, so they didn't really have time to do anything about it. But when they did figure it out, they were kind of like, oh, okay, well, let's see what happens. What happened to the girl? Oh, she died. Oh, oops.
I mean, oops. I mean, that sucks. I mean,
I know.
Even though she was crazy. She was like clawing the walls, and she was.
Oh, you could hear her fingernails against the glass.
Yeah, it was just. She was just not. She was probably going to die of an overdose or something, at some point. But still, like, you don't. I mean, you sort of. These cops sort of, in a way, they didn't know that he was going to do that, but like in a way. They sort of also allowed.
They could have prevented it.
Yeah. I mean, not really. What could they have done? Like arrested him because they
couldn't.
They couldn't. They didn't have enough.
They're in
proof.
but they're in the same position that Gordo is. Whereas they could ruin their own thing by doing the right thing by saving somebody, but they choose not to do it. Just as he makes that choice to go ahead and destroy himself.
So so they're just as evil as he is in a way.
Well, they have the same choice, but there you go. There's the high and low. Is everybody has a choice to make, whether you're going to take the high road or whether you're going to take the low road.
Gordo takes the high road when he allows to, and then all of his stuff is stripped away from him. Like, they're doing like an auction at the end where they're putting all this stuff on.
All his shit everywhere he goes. They're putting stickers on all his shit.
On the clock. When the clock rings, you can see it.
It's a shame. He sits on a couch and they're like...
Yeah, there you go.
And they're like,
you're gonna have to buy this back later.
It's okay. After the auction, it's fine. You can sit on it. It just felt bad for him. But the good thing is, and it is a positive story, because even though he makes the decision and he pays the price for it and he loses everything, at the very end he goes back to see the guy after they finally caught him, and because he's asked to see him, and the guy's being all sort of a lot of bravado. He's like saying, "Oh, I'm ready to die," and blah blah blah. I didn't want you to think I was suffering, and he's like shaking a mile a minute because he really is worried about dying.
Well, you say that, but like, I mean, I don't know. He did say like he was shaken because he was just in solitary for so long, and that's what's
he's
making
an
him do that.
Unreliable.
But yeah,
character.
You're right. He could be lying and saying that
think he's lying.
He's,
but at the very end, even though Gordo has lost everything, he's also built himself back up a little bit, because he says he's with a smaller company. He's trying to build it up so it's a rival to National Shoes. And, he's got, the love of his wife back, because clearly his wife wanted him to try and save the kid.
And his wife didn't care. Well, and so there's this really great scene where she's yelling at him about, like, you have to save this kid. You can't that's your chauffeur's kid. Like, that's so messed up. If it were your kid, you'd be doing all this. And then he was like saying, but if I do all of this stuff, we'll have no money. And she's like, it's not about the money. He goes, yes, it is, because that's all you know.
Right.
You've never known anything other than this money. You can't say that. You're going to be... So you're saying that $30 million is not enough. It's not a lot of money. You're being selfish, and stuff. And
it's an interesting argument.
It is, but, I mean... I'm sorry, like, okay, so my parents, right? They are one of the people, like, if, my dog's about to need to get, like, he's got cataracts and all these bad things. They're willing to spend as much money as they can to help, my dog out. You imagine what they would do for the children, and everything like that. So, like,
Someone think of the children.
I mean, and, $30 million in 1963... Good God, that's like $100 million today.
30 million yen. I don't know what that would have translated over, but the idea that in order to save yourself, you have to destroy yourself is an interesting thing. And it's also a very Eastern sort of way of looking at things, too.
Yeah.
Because an American director, if this had been done in Hollywood, it would have been very, very different. Just the way they would have approached it.
Back then, maybe not.
I think so. I think it would have been a little bit more flashy. And, there was a part where, you're like, why didn't the cops just grab the guy who was right there? Well, in an American way, that's what they would have done. But
they couldn't.
They
didn't have enough evidence on him
to get him on the things that they really wanted to get him with. They could have just gotten him for kidnapping him, but they wanted more than that. They wanted to put him away or give him the death penalty.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, they wanted to give him the death penalty because the other guy, the one that he stole the money from, basically was really screwed over badly because of that. And was actually going to go to jail for that. And he
killed the two accomplices as well.
Well, I mean, he gave them the heroin, but I don't know if he did that. He didn't do that on purpose.
Oh, yeah, he did. That's what they were saying. He knew, because he was a medical intern and he knew what was going to happen, that's why he provided
So they died beforehand, though, before he even knew that they died, right? So did he think it just didn't work the last time or something?
Right.
And so, oh, shit. I got him. Oh, that's why he did it to the girl to make sure.
To test.
To make sure. Because he might not have made sure before.
So now he's responsible for 3 murders in addition to everything else.
And he was getting a death penalty.
So that's why he's getting the death penalty.
Is the death penalty even a thing anymore? Do people even do that still?
In 1963 in Japan it was. So
in Japan now, I wonder?
I couldn't tell you. I don't know. I don't know what the deal is now. But it's it's a very, very interesting plot, from a detective story point of view. If you've seen one kidnapping movie, you've generally seen them all, but not in this case.
No.
It's very different, and you can see a lot of the tropes that come by later on, like modern day police dramas. You can see that happening here.
We were talking about that. There's a scene with the guy still doing his work. He was this really nasty looking dude, and he was just doing his work.
Yeah, the
doing
trash
his job.
burner.
Yeah, and the guy's questioning him and asking all these questions. He's like, I don't know. And John Mulaney, a comic, has made fun of Law and Order, because Law and Order has these scenes where everybody is always doing work when they're being questioned by the cops, or just taking packages down and boxes and stuff, and well, I don't know where that person went, but I think blah blah blah. And it's so funny because you see that in this, and you're like, so this is probably where that actually came from.
Kurosawa is very, very good at using these character actors who just you only see them for a minute, and yet they're fantastic and they're absolutely believable. Like the filthy trash guy, the chick in the nightmare, or was it the drug alley, overdose alley, whatever it's called, heroin alley. She's clawing up. I mean, she looked like a fucking zombie or something. It was really intense. Or the trolley guy, when they try to figure out the sound from the trolley, and the guy's in his little trolley suit, and he's making all the different sounds from the different trolleys. Like, oh, I know that trolley because it does this, like, juk, 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 juk. It's not. He's totally into it, So he's got these little guys doing little characters, but they're so good and they're so important and they're so, spot on.
Even to I don't know if this was told by the guy, but there's an extra in the scene, the restaurant scene or whatever.
Oh, the club
scene.
Yeah.
And he's just dancing. He's going around. He's all happy. He's a black guy. He's all happy. Comes up to the bartender and he asks the bartender for some $5, to give $5, and then the bartender's not. The bartender's just I don't know what's going on.
It was a
here.
very interesting scene because there were a number of Western people there that you could see. So there were Caucasian men and women. There were some African American men and women. There's even a guy with a turban on. He looked like he was from India, I guess. So I guess Tokyo was kind of a multicultural scene back in the 60s. I wouldn't have guessed that, but who knows?
You can consider Akira Kurosawa diverse.
Yeah, so there you go.
In his casting.
It was very interesting. This is post-war Japan we're talking about. The nuclear bombs, the 2 that were dropped during World War II, were less than 20 years from the time that this movie was shot. So it was still in that stage where they were rebuilding things. So it's like they've got one foot in modern society, yet at the same time, you get to see there's still homes made with bamboo and paper windows, women walking around in traditional kimonos with the weird thing in their backs, and the traditional robes and traditional architecture. So there's, there's this feel of 16th century Japan going on, which is pretty interesting. So, and the movie brings both of those out a lot, in my opinion, and it's a fascinating little time capsule, and just kind of the way that the Wim Wenders movie, the one we saw, the Angel
Angels,
movie,
yeah,
where it's just kind of like an encapsulation of West Germany, just before the wall fell.
Desire.
Yeah, Wings of Desire.
Wings of Desire.
This is just that little slice of Japan in 1960s, the early 60s. It's really, really cool.
Yeah.
And what did you think of the cinematography and some of the shots?
You were pointing out too, like there's like this depth of focus,
yes,
and getting everything in the shots and stuff like that, which you don't really. Most of the time, people just do close-ups, or these days, it's just easier to do like close-ups or whatever. But like to get all of that, always like you said, there's one shot too that we really both liked, where there was like the nice lady, and then the bad guy, right, sort of his shoulder.
Friend. Yeah, so instead of doing sort of a back and forth, he does it as a one shot where you're seeing Toshiro Mifune talking on the phone, giving information that everybody wants to hear, but you're seeing at the same time his wife in the one corner reacting. You're also seeing his right-hand man, who turns out to be a very dubious person, on the right hand side, and you're seeing them all at the same time reacting to what's going on. And it was like, it struck me as sort of like the devil on one side and the angel on the other, and it was just a really, really well done shot, and compositionally very interesting.
And I mean, a lot of that is the direction, most likely too. Like I'm sure he told the cinematographer, I'd like that scene, but it was just so well done that the cinematography just looked
and in
amazing.
Fact, you don't really see a whole lot of, this guy says one thing and now you go to the other guy and he says something and now you go back. You know what I mean? That's sort of the traditional back and forth that you see with a lot of conversations. You don't really get much of that.
No, like when we get the beginning of the movie with all the guys talking and everything, everybody's just talking over each other, and there's no like, and it's all one shot, so it's like they'll have like one guy over here, one guy over here, one guy over here, one guy over here, and they're all just chatting with each other at some points, because a lot of it's subtitles and stuff, which we'll get into the subtitles in a second, but it's because of subtitles and stuff. You're kind of you're not sure who exactly at sometimes is talking, because maybe somebody has their back toward them or whatever, and so, but it's done well enough where you're interested in what they're
Yeah, and it doesn't have that feel like where you're sort of like an omniscient observer watching everything. You're sort of seeing things a lot through the characters' eyes, especially the kids' eyes towards the second half, where they're trying to recreate where the kid's from. And then you're sort of trying to see things from his perspective, like here's the island where it's supposed to be, here's where the mountain's supposed to be, here's the view of the sea, and here's the tunnel that I saw, and
This is where I went to pee.
Right, this is where I went to pee. That was a funny moment. There was some funny little bits of humor that were worked in there too, which was fun.
Yeah. So I want to get to the subtitles, because
they bugged you.
They bugged me, not as much.
Bugged me a little bit.
You could read a little bit better, I guess. You have better eyesight than I do. Even with my glasses, I couldn't really see that well from the thing, and I don't know if it was the TV too, because like sometimes it's a television.
It's a black and white film, although they do have pink smoke at one point.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
That was put in. That was cool, but the subtitles were pretty much white. And so sometimes the position of the white letters against a whitish background
would blend in.
Yeah,
and you would barely ever. You would read like a few words, and then some of the other words you couldn't completely make out.
I have seen that happen in other black and white films where they've made the subtitles yellow or a different color or they made them black, and it stood out more.
Yeah, I wouldn't say black, because it was black and white, so then you get the black, and then you get the...
Well, you would think that there is some kind of AI or some kind of thing that would assume that when it adds subtitles that it would scan ahead. And
This is, I think, an older.
It is
An older
but
one.
it would
which
make it
fine
so
number.
that the white letter is against a dark background, and then when it's a light background, it'd be darker letters. That it would just change.
This is number 24. So this
Yeah,
was
so there you
probably
go.
made. I mean, I don't know if
Early
it came
on.
out earlier. I mean, earlier this year or anything. But this was like when they made this, probably with the subtitles, they weren't thinking of probably high definition.
They may not have had the technology for that, and it may not exist now. I don't know, but it was problematic. I could see for those who don't who weren't able to read it.
Yeah, so just so you know, there might be issues with that. You might have issues with that, like I did. You might not.
It's
I don't know. It
weird.
depends on maybe the TVs are better. If like we were watching a regular, TV,
Yeah.
like we weren't watching it on like a 4K definition television. So if you're watching a 4K, it
And
might.
there are some
look better.
people, and I've never quite understood this, but there's some people that don't like black and white movies to begin with, which is ridiculous. That's just stupid. And then there are people that don't like foreign films because they don't want to have to read subtitles. And I don't know whether sometimes it's because of vision. Some people, it can be distracting, because I sometimes I'm like that myself, especially if it's on a movie I'm very unfamiliar with and I want to focus my vision and my attention on the visuals. And because film is a very visual happy medium, the visuals are very important, but because I don't know what's being said, I have to actually split a little bit of time just to read the dialogue. That can be a little annoying from time to time, but I'm not going to say I'm not going to watch a movie because of that.
I'd prefer it to be in the regular language other than like dubbed, because sometimes dubbing sounds really terrible.
Most of the time, dubbing's not very well done, which is unfortunate. Because if they could do a really, really good, I mean, it's expensive to get really good dubbing down, but if they could do that in a way that it's seamless and it seems natural,
it seemed like the people were talking, and
that would be great. But usually it's not like that, because that's very, very expensive, and it's just simpler to put in subtitles and be done.
It always
with it.
reminds me of was it Police Academy 3, I think it was, but there was one bit where Michael Winslow, who plays like Motor Mouth Jones, who does all the voices. He'll just sort of goes, "Hi, you want to fight? I'm going to kill you." And he just like makes fun of the dubbing and stuff on purpose when he's about to fight somebody, like
And we've seen more than our share of shittily subtitled or dubbed movies.
Magic Lizard.
Yeah, it's just funny. So they avoid all that by putting in the subtitles. It's just
I know it looks. I mean, and the movie looks great, and then you were right. Like when you want to watch the movie, and it's like this movie, even though not half, but like a little more, almost half of the movie is set in that one set, which you loved. You loved the set and everything, which was not. I mean, it looked like a real apartment.
Right, it was a great set.
And but like most of it took place in that, and so you would think, oh, that's not going to be beautifully filmed, and they still
amazing.
made it beautifully filmed.
Yeah, this just the background, the way they dressed it, the way they kind of utilized both the styles of the late 50s, early 60s, and sort of traditional Japanese architecture was quite an interesting balance there. I'd never really seen that kind of a set before, so that was really, really cool. How'd
you know it was a set? Like, did you know?
Yeah, well, I went and researched and
Okay.
read about it, but like they gave him, and it's very important for the plot that he has these large windows that the kidnapper is able to spy on him from.
Yeah.
So there's this huge bank of these giant, almost floor-to-ceiling windows, one of which is actually a door, so he opens up frequently. And, when he does, it's great because, the light changes like it would in reality. There's a puff of air like it would be, so things actually rustle in the breeze. So, yeah, Kurosawa's one of those guys who gets down to the nitty-gritty details, and it adds so much verisimilitude and reality to the film. It helps ground it in reality. It's really, really great, and he's known for the little itty bitty tiny details for scenes like that. So
yeah, really well done.
And it ain't easy. It ain't easy to do all that stuff. To say nothing of keeping track of all the continuity and just the lighting was really really good.
I mean, he has a budget. I mean, it's not like this is an independent film or anything. He has what Japan Hollywood would have.
Yeah, it's Toho, I guess, but it would have been independent of Hollywood.
Right.
It's just a rival of Hollywood.
Right, rival of Hollywood.
And still, he had a budget, but it's not like he had a Hollywood budget either. I mean, still. But it was really, really well shot.
Saying he doesn't have 30 million yen to make this movie.
Not if he was going to save his chauffeur's dog or something. I don't know.
But no, also I love the scenes inside the, and you were saying they have that thing where you have to open and close the blinds, and at one point the what is it? They were doing that. They were closing the blinds because they had the cops in there, and so the person called and said they want them to open up the blinds so they can see inside and see who's there.
They think something fishy's going on.
Right? So the cops duck down and everything. My whole thought was like, they can't see them ducking down.
I guess not, but then they have to crawl around and while the shades are open, which was kind of funny. I like that.
I was wondering where the guy was. I mean, he must have been maybe at work or something, or his house, because he did say, okay, so he said later at the end of the movie when he was about to die, like the
giving his explanation why he was doing it.
Yeah, and he said he saw the house every day, so he must be able to look in there or whatever, and that pissed him off. Like, how dare you have all this money and I'm an intern at a
air conditioning. It was like a real point that he was sweating and it was really really hot. But you're up there in your air conditioning and, enjoying life. And it's like, oh, gosh, I guess it does get hot in Japan, Yeah,
it gets hot. Well, he said hot and cold. It's on cold days, it's really cold. On hot days, it's really hot. And he never had that, luxury of having a heating place or a air conditioning. But, this other guy, has all of that stuff. And I'm like, so out of all the people, he picked this poor guy,
right?
Who's already having a bad day as
well,
is.
And then the cop makes a very good point. He's like, as soon as the guy figures out that he took the wrong kid, normally a normal kidnapper, if you're just after the money, he would have just gotten rid of him and tried somebody else somewhere else. But no, this was personal. It's like, it doesn't matter. I'm still going to hold you to account anyway and still make you pay for it.
The kidnapper didn't know it was the wrong kid, did he?
He did. Remember, because he called up afterwards and he said, I'm still going to make you pay.
Oh, okay. I thought he didn't know, but
he didn't know at first, but he figured it out quickly.
Okay.
And but it didn't matter to him because it wasn't just the money, and that's what the cops and what Gordo brings out. He's like, he wants to see me suffer, and that's why they had a whole other set of guys going around looking for grudges, looking for people that had it in for him. Like, this seems seems very, very personal. Why is he doing this? And
that was a great scene too. Is like they come into this one room where all the people who work with him or whatever, and they start interviewing him.
He's like, they were assholes. That was great. Like,
yeah, and then on top of that, he goes up and he was like, do you know anybody who have grudges? Like, everybody, talk to anybody who knew him. Everybody had a grudge.
But it's funny. I can't think, or I can't remember of a Akira Kurosawa film where somebody curses like that. But that guy did. That was
assholes.
Yeah, that was funny. That was what was his name?
I don't.
The bald guy.
The bald guy. I loved him.
Yeah, he was funny.
He was probably one of my favorite characters.
He was really, really good.
Just because he was he was funny, and he was. You were saying he's gonna pretend, he's gonna pretend to be the woman, or whatever. We're gonna joke about that, and at the end of the movie, but they didn't need to because they didn't. Once he got to the house, they just ran out and grabbed him,
And I could tell you were a little annoyed by the kid's dad because he was always crying. He was always like shamefaced.
Annoyed, but I was like, I was like, okay, because he was crying in the beginning. That sort of annoyed you, I think, too. It's like he started just crying, like stop
so many
crying,
times,
and then when he got the kid back. He finally got the kid back, and he started questioning him. He started yelling at him, like,
I know.
You gotta remember this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, and then the guys pull him away and say, "Hey, don't yell at him. Like he can't help you right now." He starts crying again.
Right.
And
right.
I'm like,
Well, and like I said, Japan, like most of the East, is a shame society versus a guilt society. So
he's shaming his son, and then the other guys are shaming him
because he's feeling ashamed at putting his boss through this whole rigmarole by his son getting kidnapped, even though it wasn't his fault.
It's not his fault,
random.
nor is his kid's fault.
Right.
I mean, his kid was playing with the other kid, and they just happened to look like each other. In fact, the wife even said that, I think, at some point. The wife said
they
she
swapped
couldn't tell
costumes at one point.
Yeah,
the
and
kids
she
did.
couldn't even tell which kid was hers or something, So,
Well, it's a black and white film. It's hard to tell people apart.
I don't know, but I could have probably told both of the kids. I think one was even taller than the other one. So
yeah.
I mean, but I guess when you're kidnapping kids, you just grab the whatever.
And I like some of the details. Like we find out that not only is Toshiro Mifune's guy, really into shoes. Like he's really into quality shoes. That's like shoes are his life. But before that, he was like, back in the day, shoemakers used to make cases, so like briefcases. So when he finds out that the kidnapper wants him to stick this money in these very specific briefcases, the cops decide, well, we're going to put in this one powder that like it emits this terrible odor if it's burned or if it goes in the water. And we're also going to put in this other powder that emits pink smoke if it gets burned. It's like, we got to just figure out how to do it. And Mifune's like, well, here. And he takes the briefcase and he pulls out his bag of tools. And remember, they're all like looking at him. He's like, yeah, this is the kind of thing I used to do. And he sits there and he goes through it and he manages to hide all of the powders. And then later on, after the cops plant the story that one of the bills that they traced had been spent, and this is what causes him to freak out and decide he's got to go back and get more dope to kill them. He tries to get rid of the case by having it burnt when he takes it to the filthy guy, and then that's when they see the pink smoke coming through there. So
they knew where it was coming from.
Right. So
that's where they go to the dirty guy and chat with him for a little bit while he's doing his work, and everything. It was a well done, made plot,
right.
it's
someone thought about it. Somebody sat there and actually made all the little connections to see what would happen. And
did Akira Kurosawa write this?
I don't know. He usually writes, if not the principal writer, he at least contributes for most of his films, but it wouldn't surprise me. I don't recall.
So his director was Akira Kurosawa. Producers were Ryuzo Kishimiya. I'm not going to even say any of these. Whoa, they have 4 writers on this, including Akira Kurosawa. So
yeah,
you always say though, like 4 writers, you always get worried about that. I think 4 writers means they cared enough about this.
That's it's different. And Kurosawa almost always, he's like Kubrick. They will contribute.
Why?
I know.
Why did this? What happened?
It got damaged.
How did that happen?
It happened.
He doesn't want to say.
No. But yeah, the devil's in the details when it comes to the narrative and it comes to the writing. And Akira Kurosawa is one of those guys who he really, really pays attention to the details. And the details matter. And when you pay attention to the details like that and you give everybody a proper motivation and you follow out the narrative to its logical conclusions, you could do all that in the writing long before you get up there and do any production, and you have a solid story that makes sense and all makes sense. This is the kind of thing that you can do.
We talked about Hitchcock before this thing, or whatever, about something completely different. And Hitchcock was very known for finding writers and then having them write whatever, basically he told them what he wanted, and then they go and write it, and then if he didn't like it, he fired them and hired somebody else.
He was into firing people. He fired Ray Dennis Steckler just because he almost ran him over with a camera.
With a camera?
Mm-hmm. It was an A-frame camera.
Oh, and he almost ran him over?
Yeah.
Well,
that's reason to fire.
That's not a reason to fire somebody. It's a reason to get them in trouble. Say, hey,
bastard.
Yeah. Well,
whatever. If it hadn't been for that, we wouldn't have gotten Ray Dennis Steckler's wonderful career of weird, cheap, silly movies, which I love.
He was doing for revenge to Alfred Hitchcock. He was like, screw Alfred Hitchcock. I'm going to make my own.
Well, it's so funny. Steckler has connections to Hitchcock, to Stanley Kubrick, to a bunch of great directors. I wish he had a connection to Akira Kurosawa, but he didn't.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure.
Maybe you got to do some more research on that.
I'll have to do more research.
Put them together in Google. Akira Kurosawa, a lot of people really liked him. I wonder what Hitchcock thought of him, because at the time they were making,
rival movies.
Movies and stuff. So I don't know if he supported his films, or if he was
sure he did.
Maybe, or maybe he was like, fuck this guy.
Yeah, people who make quality movies are gonna enjoy quality movies from other people.
Yeah. And then rip them off like Brian De Palma.
In the 50s and 60s, world cinema was becoming a thing. I mean, there was great French movies coming out. There were great English movies coming out. There were, Eastern Europe was putting out a lot of really good movies. Russian movies, Czechoslovakian movies. There was all sorts of stuff. The late 50s and early 60s had a really big flowering of world cinema. Mm-hmm. And this, Akira Kurosawa is one of the guys who helped promote that, or helped push that along. And this is one of his films. So, he had been making movies like this for quite some time for a Japanese audience, but, it wasn't until the late 50s that America got a sniff of the kind of movies that he was making, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, and it wasn't like he was the only one. There are a number of really good Japanese directors. It's just, Kurosawa tends to get the most press because more Americans know about him than others, and some of his movies are really the top shelf. This being one of them. And I was telling Moody earlier, I've seen probably about 14 or 15 of his films, and they are all, the ones I've seen, fantastic. Mm-hmm. The man just never made a bad film, and it's part of it is because he's extremely exacting. He knows exactly what he wants. There's a famous scene in Ron where he's waiting. He had to wait 3 days and film 3 days for the exact moment he wanted for a sunset, and he wouldn't accept anything less than what he exactly wanted. And of course his producers are like, that's wasting time and money. He's like, I don't care, I want what I want. And Stanley Kubrick was the same way. He was famous for having people take 100, 200 takes, which it's exhausting if you're an actor. But then later on they're all like, oh, okay, I get it now, because he got exactly what it is that he wanted to get. So it pays to be that exactly. Not everybody can be that. Not everybody has the luxury of being like that, because usually if you're working for a studio, you got a schedule to keep, and you've got all this other shit you have to deal with, and you don't have that kind of a time frame. And frankly, most studios are not really interested in art. They just want to make a movie that they can make a profit off of. That's really all they care about. But people like Kurosawa and Stanley Kubrick and Martin Scorsese, they have the luxury of being able to wait and make the movies that they want with the visuals they want.
Tarantino's up there too.
Now he is, yeah. Although he may not be for much longer.
Well, it's supposed to be his last movie or whatever. But I mean, we'll see. People say that.
Let's hope not. I mean, he may be just tired of the whole thing.
I mean, he said he's probably going to go into TV. That's going to be next, and stuff.
I'd love to see him do HBO. That'd be great.
Well, no, yeah, that's probably that, or Netflix is where he's Showtime, something like that.
Anything that'll give him free reign to do what he wants.
Yeah.
Not Disney, please.
Oh no, I don't think he'd ever work for Disney.
Well, at one point I think it was the possibility, because I know at one point they were considering him to do one of either the Star Wars or one of the other big.
Yeah, I think it was Star Wars,
popcorn movies.
No, Star Trek. He was going to do Star Trek,
something like that.
But that wasn't. That's not Disney. So.
Yeah, no. It was something Disney related. It wasn't that, but
he won't do. He's talked about how he doesn't like the Marvel movies. Yeah. He doesn't like Star Wars movies. He's not in. That's not what he's into, and he said the only way he would do Star Trek is if he did a rated R Star Trek, and he got to have
awesome,
people curse and do the whatever, right? Which they would never let him have. So it's just
there are ways around it. I mean, famously, you look at Battlestar Galactica, and they curse all over the place. It's just. They use their version of a curse, which is not a curse in our world. So
right, so
fracking.
So they would use what is it? What's the famous type of language that Star Trek uses? Not Vulcan. What is
Oh, you mean the Klingon?
Klingon?
Yeah.
Yeah, Klingon cursing.
Right.
You know,
You can use that all the time.
It would
Yeah.
be Tarantino.
This is funny.
But anyway, the point being that there's not that many directors these days that could be in that class.
And don't have that freedom.
Christopher Nolan, though, he's sort of in that class.
And what's his name? Oh God, the other guy that I really like.
Darren Aronofsky.
No, well him, but Guillermo del Toro.
Guillermo del Toro, yeah. So there's a few still around that's still doing this kind of stuff and everything, but they're not. But it's not. I mean, it's not the same because we live in a different world now. We don't live in 1963.
And let's face it, there's a lot more going on digitally now, for good or ill, that most filmmakers are doing. You don't get really elaborate sets built anymore. You don't have a lot
green
of
screens or blue screens.
Yeah, and you don't have a lot of effects or a lot of in camera effects, and you don't have a whole lot of like stunts, certain kinds of stunts, because it's just considered not worth it, that you have to carry the insurance for, and so they'll just green screen that stuff in. Mm-hmm. It's a different world, unfortunately.
Sadly, yeah. But it's funny to think about that, because I bet in 1963 they were like, this is a different world than it was in 1933.
Oh,
or whatever. So, like, you know what I mean? Like, every generation thinks, because technology just keeps improving and keeps doing things. I mean, it's a good and bad thing, you have to take the good with the bad.
Right.
And that's just the way it is. But we won't get a movie like this anymore, because this is in the eyes of probably the generation that exists right now, this would be boring.
Well, and the thing is, Kurosawa was a product of his time and of the way that he was taught. Even if he were still alive today and making films, I think it would be very unlikely that he would do any kind of serious special effects or green screen kind of thing. I just don't think he would do that. That's not how it's not how he made his films. He made his films the old-fashioned way, in a very, very exacting way. And he's shooting on film. The very fact that he would shoot on film, it's lit a certain way. Everything is geared towards film, and very few people actually use film now. It's all digital. So it's a very different trope, and I just don't think that he would have done that. I think everything he does would have still been done like he did back in the 60s. Yeah. So, and that's why his movies still stand up, in my opinion, because they were shot for that way. And again, like I said, cinema is a very visual medium. It's all told visually, and the best visuals, in my opinion, are the old-fashioned film, actual grainy film. And even though it was cleaned up nicely for the Blu-ray, I mean, it looked really, really good. I guess I could talk a little bit about the features for this, but if you have the Blu-ray, I definitely recommend it if you don't have it, because it's just beautifully shot, and it really pops. This is the high-definition digital restoration. It's got the original 4-track surround sound presented in DTS HD master audio. The sound was great.
I think it would even sound better if we had like speakers, or whatever,
Yeah, we get a few more bucks for the studio. Maybe we can get sync it into a little bit more of a better system for us. But I think
once we move into the new area at some point, I think we'll clean up and we'll make it look a little better. I don't want to do too much to this place.
Yeah. So this also comes with the audio commentary featuring Akira Kurosawa scholar Stephen Price. It's got a 37-minute documentary on the making of High and Low, created as a part of the Toho Masterworks series. Akira Kurosawa, it is wonderful to create. There's a rare video interview with actor Toshiro Mifune from 1984.
Nice.
That would be really cool.
Does it say how long or how many minutes?
It does not here. It probably does in the booklet. There's a video interview with actor Tsutomu Yakusashi, whom I believe was the younger detective, the guy I said, you remember him? He's from Seven Samurai. He's the guy that played the young guy that was sitting in the flowers.
The older guy?
No, the other one, the younger detective that was running around, and he was one of the guys snooping around.
Was the main detective? Or
no, he was one of the other ones. He was one of the secondary ones.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't really remember necessarily, but I remember you pointing out the one guy that was like the Mifune before.
Oh yeah,
you know,
Takashi Shimura. Yeah, that's the older guy.
Yeah, but he was only in it for like a split second, I guess.
Oh no, he was in it. Was
he?
Yeah, he was the main leader of the group in the whole second part.
But the second part, but he wasn't in it as much as.
No, he wasn't as much as. So, but this also has like trailers and a teaser. It's got a booklet featuring an essay by critic Jeffrey O'Brien and an on-set account by Japanese film scholar Donald Ritchie, which sounds pretty interesting. So it's a look at this. It's a nice thick booklet here. It's 35 pages long.
Yeah.
So it's got all kinds of fun details. So if you're into this sort of thing, if you're into details and background stuff, and I love that kind of a thing.
He likes the history of it.
I do.
And I mean, you do a lot of research.
That's one of the reasons why I go for the Blu-ray and for the Criterion specifically version of this.
And so let's talk like real quick. Criterion. I mean, we do Criterion Watch. We've done 3 seasons so far, and this is our second Akira Kurosawa. First one that we ever did was Seven Samurai. And I had not ever seen it until I watched it, by myself. We decided not to do it together in the studio because at that time we were doing a couple things and we didn't have time, or whatever. So
you wanted to have the time to be able to turn it off and on when you wanted to.
Yeah, not to have to watch it the whole way through because it's like over 3 hours. That one's a little longer than this one.
It's over 3 hours, but it's close.
I think it is, but I could be wrong. But yeah, so it was long. So I was just like, yeah, I want to be able to turn it off and go to the bathroom or go do something else if I had to come back and watch it. And so
millennial with his ADHD problems.
Yeah, that's me.
Take your Flintstones chewable, millennial.
Yeah, I used to have those.
I'm sure.
And Dimetapp.
Take your Adderall or Ritalin or whatever that stuff is.
I never did those. My parents never thought I had ADHD. They were wrong. I'm pretty sure.
Your whole generation has it.
I know, but you know what? I was talking to one guy, and this has nothing to do with the movie, but I was talking to one guy and a friend of mine, and I said, I've got ADHD, and he goes, "You don't have ADHD. You're just a man." And he was an older guy.
Well, usually you can tell generationally because the boomers and the Gen Xers, if they're in the theater and it's a long movie, are just sitting there watching it, and then the millennials and younger are the ones squirming around and looking at their
cell
phone
phones,
and just doing anything but watching the film. I'm like, watch the movie.
I know, he used to always get mad at me. Nowadays, whenever we watch the movie, I just keep the cell phone over, charging because...
Well... Especially people like Kurosawa and Kubrick and these are guys that specifically will put in, specific clues or visuals or specific things, and you're going to miss them if you're not paying attention.
And there's some
like there's stuff you didn't notice. I'm like, dude, there was this. Like,
well, sometimes some of it's because you also can read the thing. I could not read the subtitles, so sometimes I miss things or whatever through that, but sometimes I miss little things, and it wasn't, it's just, I don't know, I just missed it, but there's so much, and it is a movie that, like, I would love to watch more than once.
This is a movie you can watch multiple times, still enjoy it, and you will pick up new things, so that's always a good mark of a film, too.
Yeah.
So.
This is just really well done. It's funny because you can't really say, like we said before, I don't think he's made a bad movie. Like, I don't think anybody can go, thumbs down to Akira Kurosawa's movie.
And, Kurosawa is also the master of adding in just enough little bit of humor to break up the tension so that it's not just a never-ending drama that just has to keep spiraling and spiraling. He'll have these little scenes or little bits that humanizes all of the characters because... people do that. They'll joke around, even in very tense situations. Someone will make a joke.
Or even say things that's not a joke to those people, but to us will make us laugh. Like the peeing. Like, that's where I peed over there.
Right.
That's a funny moment. He wasn't saying this to joke or say, be funny. He was literally pointing out that that's where he peed. That just made us laugh because, like, of all places, a kid, of course, is going to think of where he went to go pee, and notice it. And then... right after that, they drive around, and he's, the father says, do you remember that? And he was like, oh, I never saw that. I wasn't over on that side.
But there's like little bits of banter between the cops where they kind of will joke on each other a little bit and they'll say something cute. And it's just enough to sort of, like I said, to humanize the characters and to help break the tension. And he's really, really, really good at that, especially because, like you pointed out, Kurosawa's movies tend to be on the longer side. So you need that, but it's a very difficult thing to be able to do, to be able to write that sort of where it's just enough where you don't push it over and change the tone and now you're like confusing the audience because they're like, well, wait, is this a comedy? Or, because you don't want that.
A drama? Like,
right.
What is going on here?
Right. So you don't get that. So he's really, really good at that. So that's a mark.
It was definitely, I guess, a film noir. I'm still trying to figure out what makes a film noir necessarily a film noir.
I would say it's film noir-ish. It's film noir adjacent. There are definitely parts of it that share some of the film noir there, but it's different than a classic film noir.
And I think that's maybe that's on purpose because he doesn't want to make it like every other film noir movie you've ever seen. Because that would be boring, right?
And that's the other mark of quality that you get with these better directors is that they're not interested in making the same movie that's already been done. They want to make something different. They want to make something unique.
They make something that stands out.
Something that stands out.
From that thing. And I feel like that's the problem with Hollywood now, especially, is that...
they don't want something that stands out. They want
don't
something
that stands out
that's already been done because it's bankable.
It's bankable, and it makes sense. Like, you get mad about that, but it totally makes sense to people who are... because in the way that the Hollywood studios are made these days is that an executive will say, there will be an executive in his office. This person will come in and pitch, say they pitch something new. And then they say, well, do you have anything else? And they say, well, we have the Brady Bunch, like whatever. So they'll say, let's go with the Brady Bunch because that's an IP that exists and we can most likely get a lot of money.
Yeah.
They go to this other guy, right? They pitch that to them. They say, okay, let's do the Brady Bunch. They go and make Brady Bunch. Brady Bunch is either a success and they can make more movies and whatever, or it's a flop and they fire the person. So either way, the person had a choice. The executive had a choice. We could do this new movie that's much like, Akira Kurosawa's type of films that nobody has heard of, but it's exciting and new and different, but nobody's heard of it. Nobody might be interested in it. You were interested because it's Scorsese. You're interested in the Killers
of the Flower Moon.
Moon.
I read the book.
And you're see the book though. A lot of people may have done that, so it's an intellectual property.
It's a bestseller.
And it's a bestseller, so most likely that's going to do good.
It's going to have a built-in audience.
Yeah, so that one's going to already be
But the thing is, and I get where you're coming from, but the problem is that 95% of the time it's the same old stuff that ends up getting produced, and the new stuff doesn't ever see the light of day. So it stifles creativity, it stifles innovation, and nothing new gets made, or very little new gets made.
And this is where it's a problem because the audience is going to go to that, the stuff that they're familiar with and everything.
And they're burned out by it, frankly. Even a lot of the Marvel fans that I know of are tired.
I know, including me. I'm a little tired of it. Because it's nothing new. It's nothing like it's the same thing every movie.
And Marvel needs to diversify, or at least whoever, I guess it's Disney now. Disney needs to be able to offer other things. I get that Marvel has to make movies within the Marvel universe, but they had that whole other section, the dark, gritty, streets level kind of superhero stuff, the Jessica Jones stuff. But they decided not to do any of that, and that's ridiculous because that was a whole other version of Marvel that they were telling stories that was really good.
And that's because they're Disney. They're going with the kids stuff,
and that's their problem.
Well, I mean, that's their problem to you.
Yes,
and that's not their problem to kids and parents and all the people.
Kids grow up and they don't want to watch that shit anymore.
Right. But then, but there are still kids out there that will watch that. So that's what they want to do. So you're right. They should probably do both those,
if they were smart.
But they are doing one thing. They're doing Blade. And they are making, I think, Blade R-rated. and they are going with.
So they're remaking Blade.
Yeah, so they're remaking Blade, which I mean is a Marvel. Blade was Marvel, so whether.
Please tell me they're hiring Peter Dinklage to be Blade. That would be awesome.
No, but they're that would be whitewashing. No.
Why?
Because
Blade could be anybody.
Blade is a
any character could be anybody. We know that at this point.
But anyway, no, they.
You're saying a small person can't play Blade? Is that what you're saying?
A small person could play Blade if
Give
they were
him
black.
scissors instead.
If they were black, you can't take away from the African American characters.
I think you can.
No,
I think
you
you can do whatever the hell you want to.
No, you can't because the problem is there's not enough African American heroes and everything in those world that if you actually took that out of there and stuff, you would have a cry for for all this stuff. So but they did find a really good actor to play him. I forgot what he is, but he was in True Detective and a bunch of other shows and movies and stuff.
Mahershala
Ali, yeah.
Ali, is that who it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's who's gonna play Blade.
It's a shame because 10 years ago it would have been like Idris Elba.
Right.
He
can't play anything because he already was in a Marvel thing. He already played a character, so they don't usually cast the same guy unless it's like a multiverse thing or whatever. But here's the thing: that guy.
So even though Blade's in a totally different universe, they still can't cast Idris Elba.
Yeah, because he's in the same universe. Yeah, so if he were in a different universe, like plucked out of one universe and put into this, this
I thought
Marvel
Blade was
universe.
different.
No, Blade is in the same Marvel universe. It's in the same thing.
I never realized that.
Yeah, but anyway, so
when did that happen?
It's about to happen.
So they're changing it because Blade was different. It was earlier. It was before all that.
Right, but that if they do like a multiverse, they are doing a multiverse movie, Secret Avengers and stuff, or Secret War. When they're gonna do that, they're going to have every character from every Marvel property that's probably whatever. So I'm sure Wesley Snipes will be back as Blade for.
So they're gonna take other properties and change it so that it fits into their Marvel universe.
Well,
Thank God they didn't take Toxic Avenger and
well, but Blade was always Marvel. See what I'm saying?
That's the part I never knew.
Yeah, so Blade was Marvel. It was a Marvel comic, and then New Line owned it or whatever. Now New Line doesn't own it, and it reverted back to.
All right, because I remember seeing the original Blade, and it never mentioned Marvel.
Yeah,
ever.
I think it did, but you just never saw that because you never paid attention to that,
No.
But never thinking about that. But anyway, the point is, the guy that is doing it. The one thing I want to point out was I can't even say
Mahershala Ali.
Mahershala Ali. He was making sure that his Blade was good, and they actually fired one of the writers because she wrote like a 90-page script with very little action.
Very little action for Blade.
Yeah, like 2 scenes of action. Yeah,
What's the point?
Yeah, that's what he said, and the director was like all for it and stuff, and so he got fired, and so now a new director is being hired, and got hired, and now new writers.
It's like saying, let's make a new Indiana Jones movie with nothing happens.
Creator is one of the writers.
Oh, okay.
So you might actually like it. Who knows? I don't know. But it's going to be a different thing. I don't know. So anyway, that's nothing to do with Akira Kurosawa. But
I prefer Akira Kurosawa, frankly.
Yeah, no, I know. And no matter what, we still love the Akira Kurosawa stuff. And we'll always, I think if we do another one, which I'm sure we'll do in a couple more seasons.
If not Criterion Watch, you'll see it pop up on Film Freaks.
Yeah. Because there's so many of his movies, too. We can't necessarily do it all for the same show or whatever.
And
but
there are other Japanese directors that I'm also going to be bringing up, too. So I did buy a couple other ones in Criterion, too. So there will be a few more Japanese films.
Have you bought House yet?
I have House. I don't have the Criterion version, though. So
I want to get that at some point.
Yeah, that's a good film.
It looks really weird. It looks like something from What the Fuck Friday.
It's very weird, yeah, and it would definitely fit.
What the Fuck Friday. See, that's the other thing. We had so many different shows. We want to spread some of the Criterions around too.
That's kind of why we did that, is so we can get to all of these other movies because there's so many movies.
And that's why, yeah, because I think we started with Criterion Watch, and
We
then we're
did.
like, let's go with Film Freaks so we can watch non-Criterion.
The problem
films.
is I don't have the money to buy 3,000 Criterion movies, so I can only get a few that I.
I don't
really,
have
really
enough
like.
money, but I buy as many as I can. You know, I want to have. I mean, my goal, and this sounds crazy, is to have them all. Like if at
luck.
all, yeah, it. You know, if I get to be a millionaire, I'll buy them all.
I only really kind of want the ones that I really, really like.
Right. Well, I mean, I want to have a library where. Like,
Although there are, I mean, shit, I couldn't tell you how many that there are, but I know I haven't seen half of them. So
Yeah.
there's plenty out there, but
there's plenty out there that you haven't seen.
I'd like to see them before I invest the $75 to buy it. You know what I mean?
Well, not 75,
Well,
like
close.
20. You know,
During the sale.
during the sale, yeah, you have to wait till July and November.
Otherwise, they're like $40.
November's coming up, man.
Yeah, that's
You
true.
know.
Well,
Speaking of which,
definitely
November's
go
coming up.
out and buy yourself High and Low. You're gonna like it. Trust me.
Yeah. So we'll be. We'll. I guess is that it, or
That's
is
it.
there anything else? Okay.
Nope. I think we hit it all.
So yeah, go.
We hit the high and we hit the low.
We did, which we were talking about though. We were gonna, so you brought that up. Like it's the
Mm-hmm.
highs. There's been highs and there's been lows in this movie, and that's exactly what happened.
Yep.
But yeah.
I missed.
Yeah, you definitely missed. You don't want to see
That was my low, not my high.
Yeah, that was definitely a low moment. All right. So anyway, next month we'll have a new Criterion Watch as well, and that'll be the month of the sale. So that's gonna be really fun. I think we'll do another.
That'll be your
That'll be mine,
Criterion
yeah.
Watch. It'll be my What the Fuck Friday.
I know, and your Film Freaks.
There you go.
There. Oh my goodness. It's gonna be the month of Paul. Get ready for that. You have the
We gotta find some other folks to bring in there because I know Joe Lim would have loved this movie, but she was away this weekend.
no.
You know.
She'll be back for we'll get her for another Akira Kurosawa film or something.
Yeah.
There's so many.
So all you local yokels who want to come on, we do watch good movies on occasion, so let us
think-
know. Come join us at the studio.
As of right now, the guest that will be hopefully joining us, I mean it hasn't happened yet, so we don't know, but will be Joe Turek.
Mm-hmm.
So we're hoping to have him back, and he's been through it since beginning of.
And I know he wants to see the second half of the Lady Snowblood movie that I showed him. I showed him the first one.
Yeah, we'll
So-
do that. We'll do that for sure. I think I told you what I have planned for next month, but we'll do Lady
Oh, yeah, you
Snowblood.
did.
Trust me. But we'll do the Lady Snowblood 2 at some point for sure. 'Cause,
Good stuff.
I loved Lady Snowblood. And I
Great
didn't get to
movie.
see it with them,
Great movie.
but I saw it on my own, and I was like, man.
And another example of a great Japanese director who's not Akira Kurosawa, but Kurosawa gets all the headlines, and rightfully so.
Rightfully
But
so.
there are other great directors from Japan too. So
There you go. Well, thank you guys for checking us out. Join us next month for a brand new episode. Until then, everybody.
Bye.
That's stuck there.
Coke, is that all? That's where I peed.